Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel. My name is Sophia, and today I want to tell you a story that still feels so fresh in my heart, even though it happened a while ago. It was my first day at college in the United States, in a beautiful city called Boston, Massachusetts. And let me tell you something, honestly. I had imagined that day 1,000 times in my head. I thought I would wake up full of confidence, walk into college like I owned the place, make friends easily, speak perfect English, and feel like everything in my life had finally started. But the truth was much more real, much more emotional, and much more unforgettable, because that morning did not begin like a dream. It began with nervous hands, a racing heart, a strange silence in my room, and one very big question in my mind. What if I do not belong here? That thought kept repeating itself while I stood in front of my mirror, staring at my reflection. I remember the room so clearly. My backpack was lying near the bed. My new notebooks were arranged neatly on the desk. My clothes were ready. My phone was fully charged. Everything looked prepared. But inside me, nothing felt prepared. My stomach was full of butterflies, my mind was full of questions, and my heart was beating so fast that it almost felt like it was trying to run ahead of me. I had been dreaming about college for years. I had worked hard, studied hard, and kept telling myself that one day I would arrive at a place where I could build my future. But now that the day had actually come, I suddenly felt small. Very small. You know that feeling when you are excited and scared at the same time? That was me. I was excited because college meant a new beginning. It meant independence. It meant new people, new experiences, new lessons, and a new version of myself. But I was scared because I was stepping into a world I did not know. A world where everyone seemed smarter, more confident, and more prepared than me. At least that is what I believed at the time. I looked at the clock. It was already morning. My college orientation was supposed to begin soon. I took a deep breath, placed my hand on my chest, and whispered to myself, "Sophia, you can do this." But even after saying it, I did not fully believe it yet. I grabbed my bag, checked everything one last time, and left my dorm room. Outside, Boston was alive. The city had that early morning energy that feels both busy and beautiful. Cars were moving through the streets. People were walking with coffee cups in their hands. The air felt a little cool, and the sky had that soft blue color that made everything look calm and new. It was the kind of morning that makes you feel like something important is about to happen. And something important was about to happen. Because that was the day my life as a college student truly began. When I reached the campus, I stopped for a moment and just looked around. It was huge, not just big, huge. The buildings looked tall and serious, like they had stories hidden inside every brick and window. Students were walking in groups, laughing, talking, checking maps, holding schedules, carrying coffee, and moving with a kind of confidence that made me feel even more nervous. I remember thinking, everyone here looks like they know exactly where they are going. And me, I felt like I was standing in the middle of a maze with no map. I took a few steps forward, then stopped again. My hands became sweaty. My mouth went dry. I looked at my phone, then at the signs around campus, then back at my phone again. That was the moment I realized something very important. College is not just about classes. It is also about courage. It is about walking into a place where you do not know anyone and still choosing to move forward. It is about feeling lost and continuing anyway. I finally found the building for orientation. The moment I opened the door, I saw a hall full of students sitting in rows, listening, talking softly, and looking just as nervous as I felt. That made me feel a little better. For the first time that morning, I was not the only one who looked uncertain. I found a seat near the middle and sat down quietly. Then I placed my bag on the floor, folded my hands, and took another deep breath. The room was warm and bright. The walls had posters about student life, campus clubs, academic support, and career opportunities. Everything looked colorful and inspiring, but my mind was still focused on one thing. How was I going to survive this day? The orientation began with introductions, welcome speeches, and helpful information about the college. We were told where to find the library, the cafeteria, student services, the writing center, and the academic advising office. Everyone was speaking so quickly that I tried hard to keep up, writing notes in my notebook like my life depended on it. And honestly, in a way, it did. Because this was not just any day. This was the first page of a brand new chapter. As I listened, I started noticing something interesting. The fear inside me was slowly being replaced by curiosity. I began asking myself questions like, what kind of people will I meet here? What classes will I enjoy the most? Will I be able to speak confidently? Will I make friends? Will I fit in? Will I ever stop feeling like an outsider? These questions stayed in my head for a while, but as the morning continued, I began to realize that maybe I was not supposed to have all the answers on day one. Maybe college was not about knowing everything. Maybe it was about learning who I could become. After orientation, students were given time to explore the campus. I decided to walk around alone for a while. I know that sounds a little sad, but that walk turned out to be one of the most important moments of my entire day. The campus had wide paths, green lawns, benches under trees, and students moving from one place to another. I passed the library first. It looked peaceful and serious, like a place where big dreams were quietly being built. Then I saw the cafeteria, where students were already gathering, laughing and eating together. The sound of conversation filled the air. Then I walked past a small student center that had flyers for clubs, workshops, volunteer programs, and social events. Everything felt so new. And yet, in a strange way, it also felt full of possibility. I remember standing near a fountain for a few seconds, just watching the water move. That small moment stayed with me because it felt like life itself was speaking to me. It felt like life was saying, "Keep going. You are not late. You are not behind. You are exactly where you need to be." Then came the real challenge. Lunchtime. Now, some people may think lunch is simple, but on your first day at college, lunch can feel like a giant emotional test. You have to find a seat. You have to decide whether to sit alone or sit near strangers. You have to act normal, even when your heart is screaming inside your chest. I walked into the cafeteria slowly. The noise was louder than I expected. Plates were clinking, people were laughing, chairs were moving, conversations were happening everywhere. It felt like I had stepped into another world. I held my tray tightly and looked around. For a second, I almost turned back. Almost, but then I reminded myself that I was not there to disappear. I was there to begin. So I found a quiet table near the window and sat down. At first, I felt awkward eating alone. I kept pretending to be busy with my phone so I would not look lonely, but then I saw something that changed my mood. Across the room, I noticed another student who also looked nervous and alone. She was sitting by herself too, looking around with the same uncertain expression I probably had on my face. And suddenly, I felt less alone. That is one of the beautiful things about college, by the way. You quickly realize that so many people are quietly carrying the same fears you are carrying. People may look confident from the outside, but inside, they are often just as unsure, just as hopeful, and just as afraid. That thought comforted me. After lunch, I had my first campus tour with a few other new students. We walked from building to building, and I listened carefully to everything. I learned where the student health center was, where the computer lab was, where the counseling office was, and where we could study late at night. The college itself was impressive, but what struck me most was how many opportunities existed there. There were clubs for everything. Leadership clubs, music clubs, volunteer groups, writing groups, debate teams, cultural associations, language exchange programs, sports teams, art societies, technology groups. It made me realize that college was not only about attending classes and earning grades, it was also about discovering yourself. Maybe you are a shy person who learns to speak up. Maybe you are someone who has never tried public speaking but discovers you have a powerful voice. Maybe you are a quiet reader who becomes a brilliant writer. Maybe you are someone who has always doubted yourself but finally begins to believe. That is the magic of college. It has a way of uncovering parts of you that you did not even know existed. By the time the tour ended, I was tired, overwhelmed, and emotionally drained. But I was also starting to feel something different. Not confident exactly, not yet, but hopeful, and hope can be the beginning of confidence. Later that day, I found my first classroom. I still remember walking into that room. There were desks arranged neatly, a whiteboard at the front, a projector, windows letting in soft daylight, and a professor standing near the desk with a calm expression and a stack of papers in hand. My heart started beating faster again. This was it, my first real college class. I sat down and placed my notebook in front of me. I stared at the page, waiting for the class to begin. Around me, students were taking out pens, opening laptops, and settling in. Some already looked comfortable. Others were quiet, like me. And then the professor spoke. The moment he began talking, I felt something inside me shift, because for the first time all day, I was not thinking only about my fear. I was thinking about the lesson. I was thinking about learning. I was thinking about my future. That is when college stopped feeling like a scary place and started feeling like a real beginning. The class was about communication, and I loved that immediately, because communication is not just about speaking English clearly. It is about connecting. It is about listening. It is about expressing your thoughts with honesty. It is about being understood. As I listened to the professor, I wrote down one sentence in my notebook. Confidence is not something you wait for. It is something you build. I remember that sentence so clearly because it felt like the lesson of the entire day. Not just the class, the entire day. After class, I walked outside again and looked at the campus one more time. The sun was lower now, and the light was softer. Students were moving around with backpacks, heading to more classes, meetings, sports practice, study groups, and library sessions. The whole place felt alive, and I felt alive too. Not because I'd suddenly become fearless. I was still nervous, I was still uncertain, I was still a little overwhelmed, but I had survived my first day. And that mattered, because sometimes success is not about doing something perfectly. Sometimes success is simply about not giving up when everything inside you wants to hide. As I walked back to my dorm, I thought about how much had changed in just one day. In the morning, I had been afraid I would not belong. By evening, I had realized that belonging is not something you are handed instantly. It is something you grow into. You build it through small, brave steps, through showing up, through trying, through listening, through smiling at a stranger, through asking a question even when your voice shakes, through staying when it would be easier to leave. That night, I sat on my bed and took off my shoes. My legs were tired, my mind was full, my heart was calmer. I opened my notebook again and read the things I had written during the day. Campus map, library hours, advising office, communication class, club fair next week, meet people, ask questions, be brave. I smiled when I read those words. Because they were not just notes, they were proof that I had begun. And then I realized something very beautiful. The first day at college is not about having everything figured out. It is about becoming a person who is willing to figure things out. That first day taught me more than I expected. It taught me that fear and excitement can live in the same heart. It taught me that nervousness does not mean weakness. It taught me that being new does not mean being unworthy. It taught me that everyone starts somewhere, and most importantly, it taught me that the future does not arrive all at once. It arrives one step at a time, one class at a time, one conversation at a time, one brave choice at a time. So if you are about to begin something new in your life, I want you to remember my first day at college. Remember the fear. Remember the shaky hands. Remember the crowded campus in Boston. Remember the quiet girl sitting by the window in the cafeteria. Remember the notebook full of nervous notes. Remember the heart that kept saying, "Can I do this?" And then remember the answer. Yes, you can. Not because everything will be easy, but because you are stronger than your fear. The next day, I returned to campus a little less scared. The day after that, I felt a little more familiar with the paths and buildings. And slowly, very slowly, college stopped feeling like a place I had entered by accident. It started feeling like my place, my journey, my story, and that is why I will never forget my first day at college. It was scary. It was exciting. It was overwhelming. It was beautiful. I know I said, see you in the next one, but the truth is, my story didn't end there, because something unexpected happened after my first day at college. Something small, but powerful. And honestly, that moment changed everything for me. That night, after I finished writing in my notebook, I turned off the lights and lay down on my bed. The room was quiet. Too quiet. You know that kind of silence where your thoughts become louder than anything else? That was exactly what I was feeling. All the moments from the day started replaying in my mind. Walking into campus, sitting alone at lunch, listening carefully in class, trying not to look lost, trying to look confident, trying to act like I belonged. And then, suddenly, one thought appeared again. Did I really do okay today? That question stayed in my mind, because even though I had survived the day, a part of me still felt unsure. I turned to my side, looked at the window, and saw the faint lights of the city outside. Boston looked beautiful at night, but inside me, there was still a small storm. I kept thinking, I didn't talk to anyone properly. I didn't make a single friend. I stayed quiet most of the time. What if tomorrow is the same? What if I stay invisible? And then something inside me whispered, or what if tomorrow is different? That thought felt new. It felt like a possibility. And slowly, without even realizing it, I fell asleep. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual, not because I was forced to, but because something inside me felt ready. Not completely confident, but a little stronger than yesterday. I sat up on my bed, stretched my arms, and took a deep breath. Okay, Sophia, I said softly, day 2. I got ready, packed my bag, and before leaving the room, I paused for a second. I looked around, this small dorm room that had felt unfamiliar yesterday, now felt just a little bit like home. That was the first sign. Things were already changing. When I stepped outside, the campus looked different. Not because it had changed, but because I had changed. Yesterday, everything felt overwhelming. Today, things looked slightly more familiar. The same buildings, the same paths, the same students. But my eyes were seeing them differently. Instead of thinking, I don't belong here, I started thinking, I'm starting to understand this place. And that small shift, it made a big difference. My first class that morning was the same communication class. This time, I walked in with less hesitation. I chose a seat, not too far in the back, not too close to the front, somewhere in the middle. a safe place. As I sat down, something unexpected happened. The girl sitting next to me smiled. Just a simple smile. Nothing dramatic, nothing loud, but it felt important. I smiled back, and for a few seconds, we both stayed quiet. Then she said, "Hey, were you here yesterday too?" Her voice was soft, just like mine. I nodded. "Yeah, first day," I replied. She laughed a little and said, "Same. I was so nervous I almost walked into the wrong classroom." I smiled, and just like that, a conversation started. Her name was Emily, and in that moment she didn't feel like a stranger. She felt like someone who understood exactly what I was going through. Because she was going through it too. That small conversation changed the entire energy of my day. Because suddenly, I wasn't alone anymore. We talked before class started. Simple things. Where are you from? What are you studying? How was your first day? Which classes do you have? Nothing complicated, but every word felt meaningful. Because it was real. Because it was honest. Because it was the beginning of something. During the class, the professor asked a question. Yesterday, I would have stayed silent, but today, I felt something different. Not confidence, not fully, but courage. And courage is sometimes more important than confidence. Because courage is what comes before confidence. My heart started beating fast again. My hands felt slightly cold, but before I could stop myself, I raised my hand. Just a little. Not high, just enough. The professor noticed. "Yes, Sophia?" he said. For a second, my mind went blank. Completely blank. But then I took a breath and spoke. My voice was not perfect. It was not strong. It was not confident. But it was real. And that was enough. I answered the question in my own words. Simple English, clear thoughts, honest effort. When I finished, the professor nodded and said, "Good point. Just 2 words." But those 2 words meant everything to me. Because in that moment, I proved something to myself. I can do this. After class, Emily and I walked out together. We didn't plan it. It just happened naturally. We talked while walking across the campus. The same campus that had felt like a maze yesterday, now felt like a place where conversations could happen, where connections could begin, where moments could grow. We even went to lunch together, and this time, I was not sitting alone by the window. I was sitting across from someone, talking, listening, laughing a little, feeling normal. And that feeling, it was priceless. Later that day, I visited the student club fair. There were so many booths, so many people, so much energy. Yesterday, I would have walked past quietly, but today, I stopped. I looked. I asked questions. I signed up for a communication club, a writing group, and even a small public speaking workshop. Can you believe that? The same girl who was afraid to speak yesterday was signing up for public speaking today. Life is funny sometimes. As the day ended, I walked back to my dorm again. But this time, my steps felt lighter. Not because everything was perfect, but because something had started. Something real. Something meaningful. When I entered my room, I didn't feel that heavy silence anymore. Instead, I felt a quiet kind of peace. I sat down, opened my notebook again, and wrote, Day 2, I spoke in class. Day 2, I met Emily. Day 2, I smiled more. Day 2, I tried. And then I added one more line. Maybe I belong here after all. So if you are listening to my story right now, and you are about to start something new, a new school, a new college, a new job, a new chapter, I want you to remember this. The first day is not the full story. It is just the beginning. You may feel lost, you may feel nervous, you may feel invisible, but give yourself time, because sometimes all it takes is one smile, one conversation, one brave moment to change everything. This is Sophia. And this was not just my first day at college. This was the beginning of finding myself. See you in the next chapter.